There's something about being single that feels different. Not just a relationship status, not just a temporary thing. It feels like a statement. It feels like proof that something is wrong with you. Everyone around you seems to be coupled up, paired off, moving forward into the next chapter, and you're still here, still waiting, still wondering what it is about you that makes people not want to stay. You watch them, the people in relationships. They look happy. They look complete. They look like they've figured out something you haven't. They probably don't feel that panic when someone attractive talks to them. They probably don't go home and replay conversations over and over, analyzing every word, every pause, every moment they said something stupid. Maybe you've tried. Maybe you've put yourself out there. Maybe you've even forced yourself to be social, to be funny, to be someone who could attract someone else. And still, nothing. Or worse, something, but the wrong something. Someone who looked right on paper but felt wrong in person. Someone who disappeared after a few dates. Someone who said they wanted a relationship but couldn't quite give you one. Someone who was emotionally unavailable in ways you didn't see until it made a hole in your heart. Here's what's really messed up about being single when you don't want to be. It's not just loneliness. It's the narrative you start to tell yourself. The story that develops in your head about why this is happening. And the story you tell yourself is usually much harsher than the truth. You start to think you're not funny enough, that people need someone who can make them laugh, someone quick-witted, someone who knows how to tell a story, someone charismatic. You're not that person. You never have been. You're the quiet one, the one who laughs at other people's jokes but can't seem to generate your own. And so you decide that's probably why. You're not entertaining enough. You're not fun enough. You're too serious, too awkward, too much in your own head. People don't want to date someone like that. Or maybe it's a different story. Maybe you decide you're not attractive enough. You look at the people your friends are dating and they seem to have something you don't. Confidence, swagger, the ability to take up space without feeling like they're being too much. You feel like you're always taking up too much space, or not enough. You can never quite figure out the right amount of space to exist in. So you minimize yourself. You make yourself smaller. You apologize for existing. And then you wonder why people don't notice you. The thing about people who are single when they don't want to be is that the loneliness becomes this thing that defines them. It becomes a filter through which they interpret everything. Someone doesn't text them back, evidence that they're not interesting enough. They get rejected, proof that they're not attractive. They go on a date and it doesn't work out, another confirmation that something is fundamentally broken about them. And with each experience, the belief gets stronger, the narrative gets more entrenched, the fear gets deeper. But here's what's really happening underneath all of that. Many people who struggle to attract others and end up single struggle in general because they're afraid. Not just nervous on a date afraid, deep existential afraid. They're afraid that if someone really gets to know them, really sees them, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to realize that the real person underneath is not worth sticking around for. So they put on a version of themselves. They perform. They try to be funnier, cooler, more interesting than they actually are. And people can sense that. People can sense when you're not being real, when you're trying too hard, when you're performing instead of just being, and they pull away. And you interpret that as further proof that you're not good enough. The trap is that you can't attract anyone by being someone else. But if you're terrified of being yourself, if you're convinced that your real self is unlovable, then you're stuck. You can't perform well enough to get someone to stay because the performance is exactly what keeps them away. But you also can't just be yourself because being yourself feels dangerous. Because somewhere in your past, being yourself got you rejected, got you hurt, got you abandoned. Maybe you grew up with a parent who was critical, who pointed out your flaws, who made you feel like you had to earn their love through achievement or perfection. So you learned that your authentic self wasn't good enough. Your real thoughts, your real feelings, your real interests, those weren't interesting enough. You had to be better, funnier, smarter, more attractive, more of something, less of something else. And now, as an adult, that voice is still there, still telling you that you're not enough, still telling you that people would like you if you were just a little bit different. Or maybe it's different. Maybe you grew up without much attention at all. A parent too busy, too checked out, too wrapped up in their own stuff to really see you. So you learned that people don't really notice you anyway. Why bother trying? Why put yourself out there? If easier to just stay home, it's easier to be invisible. And invisibility, while it's lonely, is also safe. Nobody can reject you if you're not even trying. Nobody can hurt you if you're not in the game. And this is where it gets really interesting psychologically. The fear of being seen is often deeper than the fear of being alone. Being alone is painful, but being seen, really seen, and rejected anyway, that feels catastrophic. So you choose the loneliness. You choose invisibility. You choose to stay single because the alternative feels worse. But here's the thing that makes this even more complicated. Sometimes you do try. Sometimes you push through the fear. Sometimes you force yourself to go on dates, to put yourself out there, to be vulnerable. And sometimes you actually meet someone. And then something weird happens. They're not right. They're emotionally unavailable. They can't commit. They disappear. They say one thing and do another. They're not capable of giving you what you need. And you stay anyway. You try to make it work. You try to be enough for both of you. You try to love them into availability. And the psychology here is devastating. Because the pattern is this. You attract people who match your own unavailability. You attract people who are scared of intimacy because you're scared of intimacy too. You attract people who can't be fully present because you're so busy trying to be perfect, trying to be funny, trying to be someone other than yourself that you can't be fully present either. You create a relationship where neither of you can actually show up. Some people who end up with emotionally unavailable partners do it because it's familiar. Maybe that's how love looked in their family. A parent who was there physically but not emotionally. A relationship where someone showed up but never really connected. Where affection was inconsistent, where you never quite knew where you stood. And so when you meet someone like that as an adult, it doesn't feel wrong. It feels like home. It feels like the kind of love you understand, the kind you've already learned to accept, the kind where you're already trained to accept crumbs. Other people do it because emotionally unavailable partners feel safer. Because if someone won't fully commit, won't fully show up, won't let you fully in, then they can never fully hurt you. They can never fully reject you. They can't leave you if you never really had them. It's like a preemptive strike against abandonment. You choose someone who's already emotionally gone so that you can't be devastated when they actually leave. And this is the insidious part, because if you're in a relationship with someone who's emotionally unavailable, you become obsessed with getting them to be available. You become focused on fixing them, changing them, loving them enough that they finally show up. And all your energy goes into that. All your hope goes into that. All your belief in yourself goes into trying to prove that you're worth being available for. And inevitably, you fail, because you can't make someone emotionally available if they're not ready to be. And then you internalize that failure. You decide that if you were just better, if you were just funnier, if you were just more interesting, they would have stayed, they would have shown up. they would have loved you. But the truth is darker and also more freeing. The truth is that you chose someone unavailable because on some level you're afraid of available. You're afraid of real intimacy. You're afraid of being fully known and fully loved. Because if someone fully knows you and fully loves you, then you have to believe that you're worth loving. And that's terrifying, because for so long you've believed you're not. The loneliness you feel when you're single is real. The fear of never finding someone is real. The pain of watching everyone else move into the next chapter while you're stuck is real. But the story you tell yourself about why it's happening, that's usually not real. It's a distortion. It's a narrative your fear has written, and it's keeping you stuck. Here's what actually happens when people are single for a long time and they don't want to be. They start to invest all their meaning into finding someone. Relationships become the goal. Being in a relationship becomes the marker of success. And so they do whatever it takes to get there. They perform. They shrink. They try to be someone else. They accept less than they deserve because something is better than nothing. And they end up in situations with people who can't show up for them because the alternative, continuing to be alone, feels unbearable. But what if loneliness taught you something valuable instead? What if being single was an opportunity instead of a punishment? What if the thing that would actually attract the right person is not trying to be funnier or more attractive or more interesting, but actually becoming more yourself, more authentic, more grounded, more comfortable in your own skin? Because the kind of person worth being in a relationship with isn't attracted to a performance. They're attracted to something real, something true, something you can only access when you stop trying so hard to be someone else. The fear underneath all of this is that if you're yourself, if you're just quiet and awkward and not that funny, and maybe not even that attractive by conventional standards, that nobody will want you. And that might be true for some people, but it's also true that you will attract the wrong people if you're not being yourself. You will attract people who fall in love with the version you're performing, not the person you are. And that's not actually love. That's just a masterclass in rejection disguised as connection. The people who eventually find real relationships, the kind that actually work, are the ones who decided to stop auditioning, who decided that being single was better than being in the wrong relationship, who decided that their authenticity was more important than their availability, who got tired of shrinking and started taking up space, not in an arrogant way, but in a way that said, "This is who I am, take it or leave it." And here's the thing, when you finally get to that place, when you finally stop trying so hard, when you finally accept yourself, something shifts. You become less desperate, less anxious, less willing to accept crumbs. You start to notice when someone is emotionally unavailable before you've already invested months into them. You start to have standards, real ones, not based on whether they'll have you, but on whether they're actually good for you. And that's when the right people start to show up. Not because you suddenly became funnier or more attractive, but because you became whole. Because you stopped looking for someone to complete you and started looking for someone to complement you. Because you had something real to offer instead of just an empty need to be chosen. If you're single right now and you don't want to be, if you're caught in this narrative that something is wrong with you, if you're performing or shrinking or settling for emotionally unavailable people because connection feels impossible, hear this. The problem is not you. The problem is the story you're telling yourself about you, and stories can be rewritten. It starts with looking at where this belief came from. It starts with examining the messages you got about your worth, your attractiveness, your funny bone, your ability to be loved. It starts with getting really honest about what you're doing in relationships that isn't working. Are you performing? Are you shrinking? Are you accepting unavailability as love? And then it starts with deciding that you're worth more than that, that you deserve someone who shows up, that you deserve someone real, that you're worth being yourself around. Understanding these patterns, understanding where they came from, that's what we do here at The Forgotten Self. We explore the invisible psychology behind why we do what we do, the stories we tell ourselves that keep us stuck, the fear that masquerades as truth. If this resonates, if you're seeing yourself in this pattern, if you're ready to stop auditioning and start just being, subscribe, because we're building something here. A space where you can understand yourself, where the patterns get named, where you can start to break free. Until next time, remember this. Being alone while you're waiting for the right person is not the same as being lonely. And the right person will want the real you, not the version you think you have to be. Be brave enough to find out who that is.